This is your label, the single most important driver of packaging brand experience, making people fall in love with your product, recognize and return to it. But your packaging label is also a change agent, capable of transforming the sustainability of your product and how millions of people consume worldwide. The world needs more sustainable packaging solutions, and every choice matters. Multiply it by millions worldwide, and the impact is massive, global.
Welcome on our webinar, Transforming Pharmaceutical Packaging, Enhancing Sustainability Through Value Chain. I'm Elisa Laurikainen, Senior Business Manager, Pharma at UPM Raflatac. Purpose of today's webinar is to discuss the sustainability of pharma packaging, role of the pharma packaging, but also the importance of the value chain collaboration. I'm extremely happy to introduce our esteemed speakers. My colleague, Paavo Sillanpää, who is Senior Business Development Manager in Pharma and Healthcare Label Solutions at UPM Raflatac. Welcome, Paavo.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And our external speaker from the US, Jessica Budey. Jessica is the Product Line Manager for Viridian Vials within Corning Pharmaceutical Technologies. Good morning, Jessica. And let's go see our agenda for today. So we will first discuss about the issue that the pharmaceutical industry is facing. We will discuss about the emissions, but also the role of the packaging. After that, we will be hearing two innovative presentations from different companies, from the Corning and from UPM Raflatac. And then we will have the discussion, and in the end, we will have the Q&A part. So I will ask you to send us questions throughout the webinar. You can find the chat functionality behind the screen, and if you want to make the screen bigger, you can just enlarge that. So with that, I hope you will enjoy your time with us today. If we start with the issue, so we can see that the healthcare sector accounts approximately 5% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, and around half of that is actually originating in the supply chains. Healthcare supply chains needs become more circular and more efficient, and joint action at scale is needed to move the needle. Companies report their emissions in three scopes. Scope 1 are all direct emissions from activities under the company's control. Scope 2 emissions are all indirect emissions from purchased energy. And Scope 3 emissions are then all the other indirect emissions from sources outside company's control. Scope 3 emissions are many times the greatest contribution to a company's carbon footprint and also most challenging to control. If we then look how does the situation look in the pharma industry, so here we can see 4 examples of the major companies, and we can see their Scope 3 emissions. We can see that they are ranging from 80% to 94%. So this means that they are nearly 5 times higher than Scope 1 and 2 combined. Also, if we further drill down in the Scope 3 emissions, and especially upstream in pharma, we can see different categories. And in category 1, where the purchased goods and services are, is clearly the biggest. This also indicates that the highest reduction potential lies there, and actually that's the part where the packaging materials falls into. And today we will give examples, especially on how to reduce this part. Pharma companies have communicated bold targets to reduce their emissions. In this picture we can see targets from major global pharma companies, how they are aiming to reduce their Scope 1 and 2 and 3 emissions. Scope 1 and 2 emissions are the red ones, and then Scope 3 emissions are the blue ones in this picture. We can see variation in the targets, but clearly the companies has set targets to make something happen here. So to sum it up, we can say that the Scope 3 emissions are big ones. They are more complex also, and to reduce those, we need dynamic collaboration so that we will be able to do that. And also we will address this collaboration today in our webinar. But now, Paavo, seeing all these numbers, it's clear that actions need to be taken. But when we are talking about the pharma packaging, it's not so simple because there are many requirements. So would you please tell us more about those requirements?
Yeah, I'm happy to comment on that. So as we have heard, the pharmaceutical industry has set very ambitious targets to reduce the emissions. And what makes it even more challenging is that, let's say, the pharmaceutical packaging has some special requirements. Obviously, the pharmaceutical packaging needs to protect the pharmaceutical product from any kind of contamination or from the environment where it's going to be stored or transported. Then pharma is a very regulated industry, so also that applies to the packaging. So the packaging needs to comply to all those regulations. And if we would be talking about plastic packaging, then furthermore, attention needs to be paid to the extractables and leachables to verify that there is nothing actually coming from the package into the product itself. Then packaging is also communicating to the healthcare professionals and then to the patient about the dosage, information about the pharmaceutical product, the ingredients and so forth. And then in some cases the package is also acting as a drug administration. So to give an example of that, injection pens, pre-filled syringes, inhalers, eyedroppers are actually the ones which are then used to administer the product. Functionality such as child resistance, elderly friendly, sometimes needs to be incorporated into the package, and that could also sometimes, depending on the legislation and the product group, tamper evidence might be one of those features which needs to be present. And then when considering those, evaluating the materials for pharmaceutical packaging, obviously, let's say the storage and the handling conditions needs to be taken into account. Is it going to encounter some extreme temperatures, different kind of sterilization methods and so forth? And then since the validation process for pharmaceutical packaging and the whole pharmaceutical product is very lengthy, so it's important to look at also the change management so that, let's say, when the product has been qualified, there will be no sudden changes and especially no uninformed changes. Then obviously product performance, how does the product work on the packaging line? It's important. And then actually going closer to the topic of today is that the evaluation of the materials is also now including more and more what is the carbon footprint of those materials, and then looking at the different kind of end-of-life scenarios, recyclability could be also coming into play.
Well, thank you for sharing, and it was very comprehensive, and we can see that there are so many requirements, so it can be sometimes challenging to meet all of these. But I know that Corning has taken the challenge and they have innovative vial solutions. So Jessica, please, would you tell us more about that one?
All right, well, thanks once again for allowing us to share a bit more about Corning's innovation in the sustainability realm of pharmaceutical packaging. So I'll talk a little bit about the product we have to offer in that space and how we collaborated with UPM on it. First, I'd like to give an introduction to the Corning Life Sciences division within Corning Incorporated. You may know us from our decades supplying laboratory supplies and cell culture devices into pharmaceutical research and laboratory R&D. Pyrex, we're known for our laboratory products as well as in our consumer offerings. And then more and more over the last several decades, actually supporting the whole realm or whole supply chain of drug development, from the cell culture and bioproduction, specialty surfaces, material science, and our expertise in glass and ceramics involved in that. And then most recently, in the last couple of decades, focusing on drug storage and primary packaging, which is what we're here to talk about today. Now, when Corning approaches new product development to meet our customer needs, we look at both the footprint and the handprint. And what we mean by that is the footprint is how do our actions, the way that we develop, the way that we manufacture and deliver these, impact everyone in society. But then also the handprint, what value and what performance are we able to give to our customers with our innovative products? And with that, we have a lot to take into consideration, similar to what was mentioned before. Not only the product design, but the way we make it, how do we impart efficiencies and sustainability into our manufacturing process, as well as our supply chain and delivery, and up through the point where it is used with one of our partners. And today I want to talk specifically about the Corning Viridian vials. So our Viridian vials are the Corning answer to addressing a reduction in glass waste and our customer Scope 3 emissions, all while ensuring performance that's needed for the drug product manufacturing. The Corning Viridian vials start with a very industry standard base, which is a type 1 borosilicate glass. This has been used for many, many years to store drug products. Glass has this amazing ability not to react and cause impact to the drug product efficacy. And so with the type 1 borosilicate glass, we aim to reduce the amount that we used, and specifically just to thin out the vial wall. And so by reducing the wall thickness, we're able to achieve a glass vial that has 20% less glass used. So already just off the top, a reduction in the amount of material used, and therefore the amount of material that goes to the landfill after patient administration. Furthermore, we've added one of Corning's innovations around coatings by adopting an external coating to the vial. This protects the vial, and it also provides a low coefficient of friction surface to improve handling during the drug product filling as well as distribution. So all in all, the Viridian vials are able to, number one, deliver up to 30% reduction in the Scope 3 emissions for our customers, and I'll speak more about that in a few. Reduction in the glass material that's used and therefore to the landfill by 20%. And this improved vial handling, actually, that's imparted by the external coating, also helps our filling line manufacturers achieve better line efficiency. As I mentioned, it was imperative that when we design a sustainable product, we focus on performance as well. And we aim to give actually the same, if not better, performance than the standard offering on the market. And so in this case, we looked at the form, fit, and function of the Viridian vials. In terms of form, we wanted to ensure that the vial design enabled those sustainable outcomes that all of our customers are aiming for. The fit, we wanted a solution that was a drop-in. We know that in adopting new products can sometimes mean additional work for the customers in the implementation and change management. So I'll talk a bit more about how we met that requirement. And then, of course, the function. It must work on the line and deliver those sustainable outcomes. And so in this case, I'll actually dive into next a little bit of our life cycle analysis, looking at specifically the difference between an industry standard 2R vial. So this is a standard, the ISO standardized vial size, which has a mass of approximately 4.4 grams, versus the complementary Viridian vial, which with a thinner wall, 0.7 millimeters versus the 1 millimeters, has a reduced mass at 3.5 grams. To really evaluate and validate the impact on Scope 3 emissions, we took a very systemic, detailed LCA approach. So that's life cycle analysis. Specifically, in this case, we're looking at what we would call cradle to gate. So from the moment that we start using the raw materials up to the point where it's being shipped to our customers. For the vial manufacturing process, we have a few steps. We first create the glass tubes from sand and the other elements in our glass composition. So there are raw materials, definitely a lot of heat to melt the glass, and then we form that into tubes. From that point, we transport it to our converting facilities where we take the glass tubes, convert them into vials, and then we also apply the external coating. So when you look at all of those manufacturing steps, you can imagine there are different categories where energy or other environmental impacts might be analyzed. Those could include transportation, raw materials, packaging, and manufacturing steps. In this example of the 2R compared to a 2 ml Viridian vial, we see that we're able to reduce the amount of CO2 or emissions from 40 grams to approximately 28 per vial. So that's overall the 30% reduction in emissions in the vial cradle to gate analysis. And per those definitions of scope 1, 2, and 3, this equates to scope 3 for the pharmaceutical customers. You'll see here on the graph a bit of the breakdown, specifically that there are reductions across all 4 of the categories: the manufacturing, packaging, raw materials, and transportation. And so this is an LCA model that we partnered with Sphera, another expert on life cycle analysis, to develop and validate. So that's the sustainability aspect. As I said, we must ensure that the vials work in very much the same way, if not better than existing vials on the market for our customers. Here I'll talk a little bit about a study that we did with a filling line equipment manufacturer, Optima, to verify that the vials could be properly processed through the various handling steps required in drug filling. So in this scenario, we also compared the 2 ml Viridian vials to a standard 2R vial and saw that, in fact, there is better performance in many aspects with Viridian, specifically due to the external coating. So for instance, with the Viridian vials, we saw a 6x reduction in tip over frequency. And what I'm referring to is scenarios where the vials can tip over, cause a jam, and therefore cause an intervention that disrupts the manufacturing process. Furthermore, these vials were able to be used on a line without significant adjustments to the equipment, and no unique parts were required for handling. So really a drop-in solution. One thing that I haven't mentioned yet is how the external coating also protects the vial. So because this coating will create a shield against damage that can cause additional glass-related defects, we also see that customers realize enhanced yield by lowering the number of rejects that are created during the production of the drug product. This data set was actually from real commercial production of a pharmaceutical vaccine where they were using both a Corning-coated vials as well as a standard uncoated borosilicate vial. And so across hundreds of batches, we saw that whereas the average reject rate for glass-related defects, those would be bump checks, cracks, scratches, and the like, where that was at 0.9% for an uncoated vial, the coated vials had an average reject rate of 0.03%. So that's, almost 1% increase absolute on the yield for this important drug. And then verifying that we meet all the compendial requirements and everything that's required to validate a primary packaging component at the drug manufacturer. Certainly, we meet all requirements that are required by USP as it relates to glass parameters and attributes, extractables. Also, with this unique vial design, we have not We have not changed significantly the vial flange and the area where the vial is closed. So we're able to show container closure integrity. And also compatibility with various storage conditions. While some drugs are at ambient temperature, many, especially the newer therapies, are required to be frozen. And so we also see that even upon a very aggressive freezing step, either in the freeze drying or in the final storage, we actually see that in many cases, the Viridian vial, because it's been protected from damage, is more resistant to the damage that causes breakage. And then this last point, which I think really speaks to what the partnership with UPM is about, was around vial labeling. So once drug is filled into a vial, there's many more steps that happen after that, including vial labeling. And so in the initial product design, we verified compatibility of this externally coated vial with kind of standard labels on the market. And so furthermore, we sought to understand how does this work with some of the newest technologies for pharmaceutical labeling, such as those offered by UPM. And with that, I think we'd like to hear a bit more about that.
Actually, at this point, I would like to ask you, Paavo, to tell a bit more about the labels and the role of the labels in pharma packaging.
Yes, happy to do so. So now let's say if we are jumping into our presentation, a little bit improvising here, so here we go. So before going into the label, just would like to say a few words about our company UPM. We are a leader in responsibility, and the sustainability is embedded into the DNA of the company. So here are some of the ratings we have achieved. We are platinum certification in EcoVadis. ESG rating, we have a AAA in the MSCI, and then also A-listed in the CDP. So that is something what is throughout the whole company very much in focus. And then before me kind of moving to talk more about UPM Raflatac and the label materials, I just would like to highlight some of the things from the other divisions of UPM. So as it says here, innovating for future beyond fossils. The company has been striving a long time to find solutions how to use non-fossil based raw materials. And here are a couple of examples. UPM Biomedicals has created a wound care product which is biocompatible and actually based on renewable nanocellulose. Then UPM Biofuels is producing biofuels which reduce the global greenhouse gas emissions by 80% compared to the, let's say, regular fuel. And we have cooperated with Biofuels to launch the first wood-based plastic material called forest film. Then a recent one is that, let's say, our biochemicals division has been working together with Selenis and Bormioli Pharma to launch the first partly wood-based plastic container also for the pharmaceutical industry. Then if you look at, let's say, the labels, our approach developing our products and testing our products is to test it on the actual package. So there's a wide variety of different type of packaging formats, and we develop the product so that we test it on the package, and we also try to simulate the best we can the conditions it's going to be exposed to make sure that it's pre-tested and good to go for the application. Then pharmaceutical label sounds like it's a small thing in the package, but it has a very important role because in many cases the label is the one which is giving the communication about the dosage and other important information. So obviously it's very important the label stays in place, and that's of course sometimes could be a challenge in the small diameter containers. Also important it remains legible throughout its life, so that there's no chance of misreading some information. So it's important that the materials allow very crisp printing results. And then it has to sustain sometimes rather harsh conditions. It could be exposed to very cold temperatures, even going down to the absolute zero or -80 as transportation. So depending on those, we always test and recommend the correct material to sustain those. And then last but not the least, obviously needs to be safe for the patient, which is the, let's say, the starting point for everything in pharmaceutical industry.
Well, thank you, Paavo. Maybe I will take now the opportunity here to jump in, and before we go into our collaboration, I will actually first tell more about the label materials, and especially I would like to discuss our solutions that we have. So we have solutions which can deliver reduced impact, so lightweighting. We have also materials that can use recycled content and also renewable content. And also labels can play a significant role in packaging recycling. But when we talk about the pharmaceutical labeling, so well, here we can actually see now the summary of the different possibilities. But then going back to the pharmaceutical labeling, so paper labels are used a lot in the vials especially, and they are very good in that. And actually this Pharmatite here has been developed especially small diameter applications. It is thinner than the standard paper labels used in that application, and it carries the FSC certification so that it's sustainably sourced. With this material, we have the change management, which secures 36 months availability of unchanged products. And also, if you are considering plastic vials, so we can offer this paper with low migration adhesives. So let's look a bit how then does this LCA look like. So now in this example, we are comparing two materials having exactly the same adhesive and the liner, but what is different is now the face paper. We have compared Pharmatite, which is 44 grammage paper, to standard 65 grammage paper. And what we can see is the reduction in energy -10, in water -15, and CO2 equivalent -8%. And also in addition, we can achieve increased efficiency due to the fact that with thinner materials we can have more labels per reel and less reel changes. But of course, sometimes paper is not good solution, and plastic labels need to be considered, especially if the application requires moisture resistance or transparency. And with plastic labels, there are actually multiple options that you can take. So you can consider thinner constructions, you can consider also recycled content. And these two examples here are, which I will briefly mention, is first is the Ocean Action. That is a plastic label that has the ocean-bound plastic PCR content, and it's chemically recycled. So it's a good fit to the pharma as well. But also on the liners, you can consider PCR content in the PET. So those are the options. If we think about the Renew, then I would highlight the forest film that Paavo already mentioned. So that is using the tall oil, which is used as a feedstock in making the bionaphtha, and then it's further converted to plastic. But also the carbon action is actually something I especially want to highlight here. So this product was developed in fast-moving consumer goods end use, but there is no reason why this wouldn't work also in pharmaceutical. And with this material, we can quantify the carbon footprint reduction. I will show you in a minute how does it look like. The feedstock used with this product is used cooking oil. So it is obtained by mass balance, and it has the ISCC Plus certified biocircular content. And also, as it is on a mass balance basis, it has the exactly same properties as the standard films, so it behaves exactly the same way, and it can also be combined in the plastic packages, and then it works also in the recycling stream with specific packaging streams. But looking now the LCA data, and in this example, we have actually several changes made. So we are now comparing standard fossil-based label material with carbon action, which is thinner. So now the face is thinner and the face contains renewable feedstock. Also, the liner has the recycled content and the liner is also thinner. So when combining those elements, we can actually see savings in energy 27%, in water 25%, CO2 equivalent with excluding the biogenic carbon -24%, and if we are including the biogenic carbon, we get 35% reduction. So quite big changes can be made by selecting the raw materials for the products. And the data that I was showing is obtained via Label Life, which is our LCA tool, and we can use this to compare two products against each other and then provide data for our customers, but also the brand owners to make decisions based on real data. This is externally validated, and it is extended to include indicators as recommended by the Product Environmental Footprint Guide. But then, in addition to the comparison data, so we can also, and what I need to highlight is this product passport prototype. And this is an environmental self-declaration format that is created by UPM Raflatac and validated by DECRA, a leading international assurance service provider. Product passport prototype, PPP, adds credibility and prepares us for the legislative developments. Each PPP contains 25 environmental indicators, and these have been created by sustainability experts for sustainability experts. Here we can see a summary visualization, which is always provided in combination of the full documentation. So our aim is to lead the way and be able to offer PPP to every product we have in our offer. But next, actually, I would like us to move to the discussion part. And here, I would like to start asking question actually both of our experts, but first, Jessica, for you. So you have presented thinner vial solution. So how thin can you go, and actually what are the considerations that needs to be taken into account when making thinner materials?
Sure. As I mentioned in the example, so we've looked at going from, for instance, a 1 millimeter to a 0.7 millimeter. We've done quite a bit of research to go thinner. You know, even within Corning, we make fiber optics, so we know what it takes to make very, very thin cable or very, very thin glass pieces. What we are evaluating, though, is, number one, does it meet the needs of the subsequent manufacturing steps, such as being able to be processed through certain vial handling lines and so forth. I think, you know, it's not just about reducing the wall. It can also be about reducing other areas on the vial that have a significant amount of glass in the vial design. So we are doing further research on the flange and with different container closure components. Again, an example where we have to collaborate with the other suppliers on the marketplace. And so then even further to that, we're looking at where else in our own manufacturing process or secondary packaging can reduce the amount of materials used in the effective CO2.
Yeah. And Paavo, do you have from the label side something to add on that and what to consider there?
Well, I think, let's say, what our cooperation is here, obviously of testing the performance of the label on the container. But if you go into these thinner solutions in terms of labels, then it's very important that, let's say, we involve the whole value chain because then it also needs to be applied onto the container. So basically, if we go thin, then it's a cooperation with the packaging supplier, as we have here with Corning, and then, let's say, the labeling line manufacturers and the brand owners to make sure that it works as it should and to gain those efficiencies and also the sustainability goals.
Yeah, and actually next I would like to focus a bit more on this collaboration that the companies did together. So Jessica, can you a bit open the reasons for that from your side?
Yes. So with a new innovation, especially when we're talking about new materials, such as an external coating, we wanted to ensure that all subsequent uses of that vial could meet the existing or could be used in the existing manufacturing steps. And so we know that basically after the drug product is filled into a vial, there's a visual inspection step and then subsequently the labeling. And so we knew, or we anticipate, that any customer that's looking for sustainable solutions wants them not just a vial, they want all of the solutions. And so really it was about ensuring that our solution matched up with a labeling solution, met all the requirements that are needed for storage, distribution, and handling. Such as different storage conditions and so forth. And I'm happy to say that we were able to verify that specifically with some of the UPM offerings.
Yeah. So Paavo, would you please elaborate a bit on those tests and what was tested?
Yeah, I think first of all to say that, let's say in this case when there are special coatings on the vial, so we don't actually label the glass, we are labeling that coating. So that's why I want to verify that performance also from that purpose. And we did kind of a various kind of testing, like the typical ones, exposing the vials into different kind of conditions, ranging from the ambient temperatures to high level of dry heat, or then a heat and humidity, and also to the cold temperatures, which is important so that, let's say, something which might work well in the room temperature then might show some defects in when it's exposed to different conditions. And that obviously is very important that we are, let's say, focusing and testing it all the way. And also in this case, like our, let's say, the way we normally do it is that we test it on the actual package to see how it works. And let's say the materials we tested here was our Pharma Light, which is also a thinner paper. And then we had also the forest film, which was mentioned here earlier as, let's say, the more sustainable option with having the bio content into the product. So all these products worked well, and we are very happy that let's say we were able to do this testing together. And let's say if something new changes, new type of coating, new type of things, what's are coming up, we are certainly going to repeat this testing.
Well, thank you. That was an excellent summary. If we now consider everything that we have been discussing today, and we can see that there are requirements for the packaging, so the performance requirements and the product safety needs, then we know the other side, the sustainability targets of the companies, and then we have these different requirements, and maybe the challenge is then to how to combine those together. With that in mind, I would like to ask both of you that has the sustainability in pharma packaging landscape changed in recent years, and if yes, why? Paavo, if you go first.
Well, I mean, sustainability is on the agenda of every industry, and pharma is no exception from that. So there's been long time focus, of course, for the pharma industry to focus on their scope 1 and 2 emissions. And then, let's say, in the scope 3 side, mostly had started with the tertiary or secondary packaging, and in sometimes eliminating packaging totally or lightweighting the packaging. So that has been going on for quite some time already. Now we are actually more turning around the topic of primary packaging, which is the most challenging one. And there's several issues what needs to be taken into account in that, and kind of combining these two bubbles. Not compromising the safety in pharma, but then introducing sustainability aspects into it whenever it's feasible.
Yeah. Jessica, do you have things to add there?
Yeah, I think we're really happy that the industry's been kind of peeling back the onion. As you mentioned, you can start with things within their control. So, for instance, facilities being LEED certified, things that are kind of at the various clinical or manufacturing steps. So we're really happy also that since we're able to have these discussions, we're getting more and more feedback from customers on what's important, where can we change, where can we offer something a little bit more different or innovative, and where do we need to hold to certain requirements to ease adoption. So we're kind of happy to be part of that. And really, there's a lot more that we can do in that space with the continued collaboration.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for your answers. And I think now it's time for us to go to the Q&A and answer the questions that we have received from you in the audience. I can see we do have questions, and the first one here is, what is your approach to change management? Jessica, do you want to take that one first?
Sure. This is pharma, heavily regulated. All changes must be assessed. So I'd say a couple things. One, you heard me mention form, fit, and function. That's usually our criteria to assess whether even a change on some of our other vial offerings might impact our customers. And so with Viridian, we aim to maintain some of those so that it was easier for the customers to also do change management. That said, as I mentioned, we offer a lot of other vials that kind of are the same as those on the market. And we always kind of consult with our customers ahead of making a change, making sure it meets their needs, first of all, and that we understand what perhaps data packages or additional testing might be required to show and qualify that on their side.
Yeah. Paavo, can you share our approach?
Yeah, well, we understand very well as well that, say, in pharma, the last thing you want to hear, something is changing and you start your kind of a testing again. So what we have is that we have separated our pharmaceutical product range, labeling product range from the others. So we do have a change management process for the pharmaceutical labeling products where we actually have a 12 months notice. And then since our products have a 2-year shelf life, there's also a last call option. So in that case, it would provide 36 months of unchanged product. And this is also when we develop the products, we keep in mind that we provide a change management. So obviously, if we can, we don't change anything. But let's say we know in this world that changes can happen from the various reasons, sometimes also from the regulatory reasons. And then let's say we give heads up 1 year ahead that this is going to change. So it allows time for the requalification.
Yeah, thank you. Then we have quite a big question here. So what is, in your opinion, the biggest challenges to meet sustainable pharma packaging? So if you could shortly answer to that one. What is, Jessica, in your opinion, the biggest challenges?
A couple that come to mind are, of course, the regulations. I think that many of the regulatory bodies do look to pharma and suppliers for input. And so I think that, that's a long game, and we can help support constantly evolving those regulations, which could allow for different innovation or could also direct and help standardize what is considered appropriate, I'll say, newer packaging technology. I think the other one is this whole LCA approach and making, how do you account for the carbon footprint? So I think with these experts that we work with and kind of the firms that spend a lot of time doing this for other industries, we can learn more about that.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, I will still ask Jessica, because we have this question, what is the material of the vial coating and how is it applied?
Sure. So the external coating is a polymer, actually. It's applied via a spray process. After the vial has been converted and annealed, we apply the coating on the external surface, and then it goes through one curing step to really bind the polymer to the external surface. So the coating doesn't come off, but it is applied just to the outside.
Yeah, thank you. Then I still want to take 1 or 2 questions. We are soon running out of time, but I picked this one. Are there also mechanically recycled materials that are approved for pharmaceutical applications? And I think this one goes for you, Paavo.
Well, I guess all the things are moving rather slowly in the pharmaceutical industry. And let's say basically I don't have any information that something actually move into the mechanical recycled. I think mostly, let's say, the chemical recycled usually easier to accept than mechanical recycled. But let's say, then again, if we look at, for instance, glass packaging, and glass is a functional barrier, then why not? It's mostly, let's say, the concerns about something leaching from from the label material into the product. So I wouldn't recommend that for the plastic containers, but with the glass containers, I think the mechanical recycle could be used as well.
Yeah. And then we have a question that how are the labels applied to the vials, and do you use any automatic label application system? So of course in the real life they are always automatically applied, so I'm not sure if this question is now related to the testing that we did together, but maybe we can say that in the testing they were applied by hand, but in real conditions they are always applied by
automatically,
machine.
And we do have also a label applicator in our laboratory, so we are able to do that as well.
Yeah.
So, but I believe in this because it was done already some time ago. It was hand applied.
Yeah. Okay. Final question: are these products available globally? Jessica. Maybe we lost Jessica, so Paavo first.
Yes, for sure. I mean, let's say we do have very wide distribution network. We cover the whole world, so we are able to offer these products also in any part of the world. Obviously, of course, we have to first get a kind of a information, what is needed and how much and whatever, but definitely we can make it happen.
Thank you. But hey, now I think it's time for us to continue. And actually, I will summarize what we have been discussing. So the key action points to remember is that in pharma, safety is priority. Implementing sustainability in packaging needs to be taken into account the pharma-specific requirements that we have been hearing. Collaboration is needed, and credible data as a driver for decision-making and reporting is a good thing to have. And there are opportunities already, so please do reach out us so that we can find solution that is meeting your needs. Still, for those who would like to get more information, I like to highlight these resources that we have, and these are available on our website. So we have a guide to sustainable pharma labeling. We have also pharmaceutical and healthcare label material selection guide, which is helping you to select the right label material, and also pharmaceutical labeling checklist. And we are also at PharmaPack in January, so if you are visiting there, please do come and say hello to us. Would be love to meet you there. And also, Corning has additional resources, so you can go in their website and you can learn more on the Viridian Vials, or download the e-book on the sustainable strategies for pharma glass packaging. And I'm happy to say also that Corning is at PharmaPack, so you can meet them there as well. But I guess it's now time for me to thank you in the audience. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for our speakers. Thank you, Paavo, for sharing your expertise. And also I want to thank Jessica for sharing her expertise for us. I wish you all a great day ahead, and goodbye.